The performance of Premier League football players is suffering because of their worries over in-team gambling. New research has emerged which claims players are underperforming because of concerns about poker games on the team bus or at hotels before matches. Joining us now is Michael Jarman, a former footballer and sports agent, and Frank Cochran, a wealth manager who works with some of the top football players. Hello to you both. Thanks for joining us on Sky News this afternoon. Now, who wants to start and tell us why footballers gamble in the first place?
I can go first if you allow me to. It doesn't come as much as a surprise, the report, in all fairness. You know, football players are obviously very cash rich, have very short playing careers, but are time rich as well. And I think when their days are done in terms of you know, training, and they want to switch off or look for some form of escapism, gambling is one of those processes that's very easy to fall into. And as we both know, like any form of drug that can be taken, it's very addictive. Losses can sometimes add up to huge sums of money, which ends up inevitably meaning that they're going to chase. And it becomes a very vicious circle and a spiral down a slippery slope, and something that I wouldn't promote or give the green light to any football player in even thinking about considering doing it.
I'm sure, Frank, some footballers would have gambled on Michael talking first then. Why do they gamble?
I think it's endemic in football, and it has been for a lot of years. As Michael says, there's a lot of problems that you've got with these young men. They're coming from, in the main, working class backgrounds where dad's been down the betting shop. They then enter the football arena. The players are going to send them down to pick up their betting slips when they've won. They never send them down to pick up the ones that they've lost on, and they think it's an easy way of making money. But the big problem comes when you see what goes wrong when the betting becomes an addiction, and they're going down to the betting shop on a regular basis, they're losing money, and unfortunately it then becomes a rabbit chase that they're trying to make up the losses that they've made, so they start to bet more and heavier. And in some cases they can leave the game completely broke, and the only person that's a winner is the betting shop. Michael,
is it because, you know, the footballers do generally come from working class backgrounds, and suddenly they've got all this disposable income? I think I read that you were earning something like a couple of grand a week or thereabouts when you were in football, and suddenly it's a lot of money and they basically don't know what to do with all that money.
If you're asking me if I've ever gambled before, Kay, yes, I have. A couple of grand a week or no couple of grand a week. It's something, whether you're from a working class background or you've got a good family upbringing, like I said, they're often not educated well enough or well equipped or well advised from a young age. They have very short playing careers, they have a lot of time on their hands, and it just comes down to them not being protected well enough financially with good sound advice in order to keep them away from doing this or participating in this type of activity. A lot of it comes down to, I think, is just time. They have too much time on their hands and they don't know what to do with it, so they turn to things such as gambling. It often starts off as a little flutter and them enjoying themselves, and then before you know it, like we just said, it comes into a very slippery slope where they end up losing and costing themselves a lot of money. The real art of it is to try and keep their brains active on something else, whether that be setting a business up or learning a language or putting extra hours in on the training ground. They just have to keep themselves away from it. It's quite simple as that.
Frank?
One of the things that we've done is we've introduced a scheme called the Young Players Kickstart Scheme. And what we do is get the kids while they're at the academy, work with the mums and dads, start to work with them at a very early age and try and install some very good habits. So we're interested in getting them saving, starting very simple ISA schemes or straightforward savings schemes. And then as they get their professional contracts, coach them to look after their money correctly. Because as Michael will undoubtedly agree with me on, a 16-year-old with a couple hundred quid in his pocket is not very dangerous. A 16-year-old with 4 or 5 grand a month spare income is going to try and find something to do with it. And if you can get these kids to do something that's more interesting, i.e. get them into golf or something that is going to take their mind off what they're doing in their spare time, what we're trying to do is promote the fact that, you know, some financial education at club level will get them on a better path, and the sooner we can do that with them, the less problems we're going to have going forwards, and we'll see less players hitting the news because of the bankruptcies and the problems that they face, and some of them even spiral into drug selling and doing all sorts of illegal activities, because they do strive to try and keep up the standard of living that they've built previously. And unfortunately, if they can't do it in football, there are a number of different ways that they can do it, but unfortunately a lot of them tend to be illegal.
Michael, Do you think the club should accept some responsibility to make sure, especially the younger players, know what they're doing?
It's very hard to contain though, Kay. It's not as simple as, I think everyone's responsible, from parenting to friends to clubs to, we're all accountable for the mindset of how another one works. And I'm not going to just single out football players, because there's people in all walks of professions that turn to gambling as an addict and put themselves in very, very strained situations. So I just think the situation comes down to the fact of it's trying to find a way of keeping them out or offline and away from casinos, etc., and trying to ensure that their habits are focusing on more good rather than counterproductive things. Whether clubs can contain it, I don't know. Football players can come into so much cash early doors, even with saving plans. You can't stop them from having access to their own cash that they want to do with on a weekend, and we just have to hope that more times than often that it's put to good use rather than bad use. So it's kind of trying to promote players, I suppose, in a better light, and just making sure that everyone sticks around them and gives them the best possible advice.
Michael?
One of the things that we try to install in the players is that they've got roughly between 120 and 180 paydays in their entire career. The more of that they waste, the less they're going to have to go forwards and build a second career or a life for themselves, which is going to be financially secure when they do stop playing at 35. And I think if we can start to install that into them and start to certainly sort of almost give them a fear factor, that they think, well, hang on a second, if I don't do things right, I'm going to end up at 35, broke, with no future and no training in any other market that they can turn their hand to make money. So it's a big problem.
Michael, final thought. I mean, from your experience and from players that you deal with and you support, do they play better if they win? If they win at gambling?
It's like anything, it's a confidence boost. I suppose if you've had a day where you've managed to make however much it may have been that you've been playing with, and you feel like you're on top of the world and you've won money, and then you go and have an excellent performance, it kind of puts you into a false sense of security because you think that you're on top of the world. The problem comes when, like we said, there's no stress, Kay, like financial stress. And when you've lost large sums of money, which typically some of these players do, it puts you into a very bad mindset. So it's not a surprise that it affects their performances at all. The point is to not do it in the first instance.
Good to talk to both of you. Thanks very much indeed. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Do keep your thoughts coming in.